Okay. So just know that we appreciate you attending. And I'm going to go to the next slide here. The next slide, these are the monthly charts that we send out. This is the January chart. And we're really pleased with what we're seeing after the clean out. It could be a lot worse. So in zones 27, which I'm in charge of, we have 4 districts in green. You can see those 4 districts: 5440, 5450, 5630, and 5690. In that zone, the subtotal of zone 27 were 18 down, or 0.08% down after the clean out. In zones 21B and parts of 27, you can see that we have 5 districts that are up in membership after the clean out, the January clean out: 5730, 5790, 5810, 5840, and 5870. 59, 50. Those are the ones I thought. If you look to the extreme left of your screen, you can see that last year that red, where your district number is found, last year in District 27, we had no districts that ended up in the green at the end of the year. That would have been June 30th, 2017. You can see that in zone 21B and parts of 27, we had 3 districts that ended in green at the end of last year. This chart reflects that we're 33 down at this point, and the way you derive at that number is you take the subtotal of zone 27, you see 18, the subtotal of zone 21B and parts of 27, 15, that equals 33, which shows us at 0.07% down for the year. And so all we can tell you is keep up the good work. You that are barely in the red, work hard to get in the green. And you that have some work to do, do not hesitate at all. Do not hesitate to call upon us. We're all available to assist you, and please do that. We think we have a great program for you tonight, and we're going to start out by introducing Julie Aubrey. Most of you know Julie, but for you that don't, I want to tell you this is an exceptional young person, and she's a regional membership officer for Rotary International. I've had the pleasure, and so has Sherry, who, by the way, I should excuse tonight. Sherry is unavailable for this call tonight because she has a doctor's appointment and was not able to join us tonight. So please excuse her. But Julie has been working with us as a regional membership officer since both Sherry and I came in. We just think the world of on all of her. Plus, she's multi-talented. She's a clothes designer too, and she has a little business on the side that she does that's kind of fun. And so this is an exceptional gifted person, and she's going to be talking to us about charting new clubs. And I hope you like my little satellite there and satellites. So with that, Julie, we're going to turn the presentation over to you. Excellent. And we ought to see her screen in just a minute.
All right, can you see my presentation?
Can't see it yet.
You can't see it. Okay.
I'm gonna stop my share.
Oh, I see it now. I see it now. Here we go.
Okay. There. Now
All right. There we go. Well, thank you so much for the introduction, Kelly. Really, really excited to be on the call with everyone tonight and to talk about this topic too. I think that though there's been so many opportunities to improve the member experience within existing clubs, I think that sometimes we forget about the opportunity of starting new clubs, and so that's what we're going to discuss. So some of the things we're going to cover tonight are just understanding the process behind new club development. It's not as intimidating as some people might think, and it's definitely well worth it if there's some good planning out there. Go over some options and opportunity, different things that can be done to get things started. And then also I've got some examples of some really vibrant new clubs, some in this territory, some not. I tried to dig and find some really unique clubs that have formed to share with you all, because even though territories have different challenges, I think that we can all learn from some really great clubs and what they're doing, and then some resources to support you if you're interested in starting a new club. So this is one thing I always try and mention. You know, if opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. I guess a more crude way of saying it is it's sometimes easier to give birth than raise the dead. And I think for this, there's so much value in the Rotary clubs that exist already, but I think sometimes there's missing value or opportunities that aren't noticed within the community. So really creating a new club addresses this, and trying to do something different than what's already being done. Obviously, you don't want to be redundant. That's going to serve no one, other than just trying to really see what your community needs are and form a club around that. So again, thinking about the why of creating new clubs, addressing what values might be missing that other Rotary clubs aren't addressing in the community. Not to say that that necessarily has any poor reflection on the existing clubs. Communities are complicated depending on the size. You can't cover everything by yourself. And I think if you're looking at, you know, different meeting times, different demographics, different professions within the community, you can really create some great opportunities to include them in Rotary. And this is where we really try and get clubs to work together. Each club has their own style, their own personality. So if another club should start off, but they're wanting to do something a little different, I really try and encourage collaboration and working together. If you want to make it a healthy competition, that's great, but seeing each other as competition in general, as though like the other club is your enemy, not a great way to start, because everyone wants something a little different, and kind of forcing everyone into the same box to like the same type of Rotary club really is a disservice. Like I said before, reaching new demographics, professions, and skills in the community that maybe the existing club meeting time doesn't really give opportunity to other professionals that want to join the club, or different demographics that maybe meet in a different part of the region. It's not accessible to them. There's so much great new flexibility to utilize to try and reach different kinds of people who would make great leaders. Crafting a different kind of member experience. You know, Rotary's changed, we're seeing a lot of changes in Rotary, and you really can make it such a unique opportunity. Sure, you can look at positive examples from the past, but if you really want to turn the member experience on its head, go for it. I think that there's a lot of different ways in which Rotary can be shown to the community, can be acted upon, can be engaging in the community and its members, and trying out something new, being really experimental, or just, you know, finding out what it is that your community wants and going with it. I say go for it. And utilizing all the new flexibility, whether that be meeting formats, membership types, engaging Rotaractors, there's so many different ways that Rotary clubs can expand on how they used to be. And now having it off from the start, having this set up with a new club just kind of sets this great standard for making it what the member needs it to be. And so getting started, just some things to keep in mind. One is leadership, research, and opportunity. Obviously, you want the district to be in support of this new club. You would want the community to be in support of it too, meaning the other existing Rotary clubs. But if it's a matter of they just don't want a new club at all and they're not offering the value of what this new club could, I think trying to work out something there would be really beneficial. Researching, you know, opportunities, demographics, who could participate in this. Just recently I heard about a community that most of the Rotary clubs meet on Thursdays at noon. How is that offering any opportunity to people that don't want to meet on a Thursday at noon? I thought that was really silly to hear, but you hear about these opportunities. Why not an evening club? Why not a weekend club, a breakfast club, coffee club? So many different ways, meeting online, meeting in person, really examining how you can make membership accessible to people. And another thing is considering organizing, building support, and making a communication plan. So understanding necessarily what you want this club to be and building support. Not only do you want support from the leadership, but you also want to have people leading the club into chartering, whether that be people that are in the club or a sponsor club supporting them, educating them, mentoring them, and creating a communication plan. How are you going to engage in prospective members? How are you going to let them know that this opportunity exists and that they have an opportunity to get in at the base level of how this is getting started? They can be part of that plan. So if you're reaching out to them via social media, newspaper, word of mouth, radio, TV, however it is you want to do, make that plan up and stick with it. Then holding meetings and continue to engage prospective members and having them spread the word as well. So holding the meetings, that's basically you're at that point a provisional club. You're running the program, if you even have a program. Not all clubs even have to have a program. That's something, it's a standard necessarily that Rotary clubs have had in the past. It's not mandatory. There's no one saying that you have to have a club speaker, a guest speaker. Then getting your member forms all together. Once you have 20 members, and you can charter at 20 members. If you want to wait a little longer to make sure that your club is feeling really solid, that's okay too. You're just able to charter as a club officially once you have 20 members. And at that point you can submit your charter application. Sometimes it depends on how well organized it is. It can be a pretty quick turnaround, or it might take a couple of weeks if there's some back and forth and some questions. But RI staff is happy to help with that. And then once that starts, you want to celebrate. You want to announce that this club exists, let people know that you're proud to be in the community, but you don't want to stop developing the club at that point. You want to maintain continuous club development, just like you would with any Rotary club. I always really, really promote having membership satisfaction surveys. And when you're that early on, having that is important. Also, continually assessing the community is really important too, to see if there's something that you're missing an opportunity there. And another option to consider are satellite clubs. And to briefly explain, if you don't know what a satellite club is, it's kind of a club within a club. It's not chartered. They show up on the club invoice. You need a minimum of 8 members to start. And the point is to have a different club style or direction than what the parent or sponsor club the satellite would belong to. That they would help mentor the satellite into chartering to make sure that it stays a vibrant and successful club, and sustainably so. It's a great way to learn how to understand the administration behind running a club, the leadership. integrating different demographics such as young professionals. One exciting opportunity is sometimes you'll see these Rotaract clubs where perhaps a lot of members are aging out all at the same time, and they're not ready to leave Rotary, nor should they be. They've already bought in. They've really love the Rotary experience, but maybe the existing club experience as it isn't really for them. This is a great opportunity to create a satellite club so that they can get started on creating their own style of club. So that's the point behind satellites, is really just helping them become a club of their own. One thing to keep in mind, sometimes when a satellite does charter off on its own, the sponsor club isn't so happy because they wanted that membership, they wanted to keep control, but really that's not the point. It's not to stay attached to that club forever. For them to work together, we definitely want, and you see a lot of success with that. Now I'm going to cover a few examples of some new vibrant clubs that have existed, both in zones 21B and 27, but also outside of it. The first one actually being in Florida. It started off as a satellite club, but it's chartered successfully. It has, I think, 35 members at this point. And how they chartered, or how they became a satellite, was after the club, the sponsor club did a community assessment and saw that there was a really great opportunity to create a different style of Rotary club. So they meet twice monthly in the evenings. There was no evening club there previously. It was a great opportunity to hook and keep good Rotarians that loved being a part of Rotary, but they just couldn't meet in the meeting, like the morning anymore. This was giving them opportunity to stay engaged in a new club. And they created a special type of membership for young professionals where up until the age of 40, they can pay half of their dues to make it more accessible and financially accessible for them. This one's actually in Australia. The Rotary Club is they had a really great way of how they kind of called to action this club. They saw an opportunity to just start something totally new. They didn't want, the format of any other club that they'd been to. And so they put a call out on social media, radio, television, announced it in community forums, and really tried to get people who were already active in the community but not yet a part of Rotary, but they thought should be. And they have a really, really diverse member group too. So they rotate their meetings. Sometimes it's a new restaurant, mix it up, but sometimes it's at one of the members' houses too. So they really try and stay together as fellowship. If there's a new restaurant, if there's a new venue, if they're wanting to make it something fun, maybe it's a concert, something, they'll rotate to those different venues and make that part of the meeting. And they meet twice monthly. They make their focus on projects. Speakers are they're the exception, not the rule. They don't always have a speaker. And if they do, it ties together with what their project that they've been focusing on is. So they found that they get a lot done in a short amount of time. So, I've heard other people say before, perfect engagement is more important than perfect attendance. So that's a great way of utilizing meeting less frequently, but making the most out of your meeting time. And this is a great e-club that began recently because the region, a lot of people travel quite a bit, and it makes it hard to have necessarily one solid home base. And I know that this also applies for those retiring snowbirds, people that travel and they don't necessarily stay one place. So what they did was they made their demographic travelers. They meet online. It gave them a sense of purpose when they're traveling. And they will periodically meet up at different club projects and plan to work with them. Obviously, they have good communication with existing Rotary clubs. And then they got together just last November to do a cruise and a trip where I think about 90% of their membership from all over the country got together to celebrate and bond with each other. And they continue to grow steadily. And the Rotary Club of Cross Timbers, some of you might have already heard about. This one is in Texas. And they've continued to grow. They chartered at, I think, about 60 members, but they're already up at 107 at this point. And basically how they created this new club was going to the drawing board and saying, what would our ideal Rotary Club be like? Having that discussion and continually making this more accessible to people, thinking about the time of day they were meeting, thinking about the talent and the type of membership they wanted. They have a no drama rule, which I love, because drama, a lot of times it's, you know, personal agenda. They have a personal conflict in the club and it can kind of hold everyone back when that's really not in the best interest of the club or the community. So they tend to just have a lot of fun and get a lot of stuff done. There's some really great fellowship opportunities that they've geared around families, around couples, around people who like to golf or drink wine. And while they're getting all of this fun friendship out of it, they're also getting a lot of projects done. So they have a really healthy member dynamic in the club. And this one you might have heard about as well, the Rotary Ambassadors Club. This is a totally new type of club with 20 members at the chartering limit, the minimum. It is also the capacity for which they have their club to give it a more intimate experience and also control more of the dynamic of the membership. And they meet twice a month online and a Sunday cocktail hour. Once a quarter, they'll have one of the members host a dinner in their home. And they share, membership can be shared with your partner or your spouse. And it's a totally new type of club, and a lot of people might be off-put that, well, why can't it only be 20 members? Well, why not? And they've even created a great little guide on how you can create your own ambassadors club. So the point isn't to shut people out. The point is to do their best to control happy membership. And when you've got it capped as 20 on purpose, you can really control that. And the nice thing is it's not like they've gone down any. They still have 20 members. So they've been doing really great. And then some resources to get you started. I've shared these with Kelly, so I think he'll be sending an email out after. There's great publications. We've got Starting a Rotary Club that has step-by-step process and the application for starting a Rotary Club. Also the satellite FAQ and application. Club flexibility page on My Rotary is a great place to take a look around and see what options you might be looking at. There's some great questions to ask yourself, some other prospective members on the type of club that you might be interested in creating. I mentioned before, membership satisfaction survey I think is vital for both starting new clubs and existing clubs. And I'll keep preaching that until people are doing it at least once a year, because as membership changes, so does the dynamic, so do the needs and wants, so do the projects. And I think it's so important to really tap into the membership needs, because membership is the most important factor of Rotary. Yes, we do some really incredible things around the world and some great projects. We raise great money for the foundation, but without our membership, we would be nothing. And if the member isn't happy, they're more likely to leave. So really checking in to make sure that this can be the best member experience possible is important. If and when you're ready to submit a new club application, you would submit it to your club and district support team. We'll be sharing that contact information too. They can help walk you through the process and answer any questions you have about procedure, and they're the ones that review your applications. Then when it comes to looking at strategy or guidance as far as, you know, different forms of clubs, opportunity that exists, success stories, I definitely encourage you to utilize your Rotary coordinators and assistant Rotary coordinators. So for example, Kelly is your Rotary coordinator. We'll have a whole list of contact information for them as well. And myself, I'm happy to answer any questions or guidance or point you to some other examples that exist too, because I didn't want to share them all in this because there wasn't enough room, but there's some really great other examples of satellites forming into vibrant new clubs. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And at this point, if it's okay with you, Kelly, I'd love to open it up to questions.
Great. So please send in your questions. I'm not going to be able to make you all, I can see on the webinar. We're still learning this as you are. Raise your hand. If you've got questions, just send them in, and we'll go from there. So Robert Greenstreet has a question, and I'm going to see what this answer live means. So Robert, you can ask your question, I think. Yeah. Would you like to answer this question live? And so this is Robert's question. What is the chartering fee for a new club?
That is a great question. Unfortunately, I don't remember the answer to that one because it's been a couple of years since I've been on the club and district support team. I'm a little out of the loop on what the charter fee is. Kelly, do you remember?
I can't remember. It's not much. It's not very expensive.
It's not. It's not.
It's on a per member basis.
Yes.
So, but it's not much. I want to say $7, but Robert, we'll get that and send it out to everybody.
Definitely.
George Small says, does a new club have to have a sponsor?
And the answer to that is no, they don't. I would recommend it, and you can even have more than one club sponsor. Basically, it's just a different way to have someone offering guidance on getting the club started. So even though you don't have to have a club sponsor, I would still recommend it. I think that there's some really good information that existing clubs could provide to help you get off on the right foot.
Okay, Catherine Hubbard, this is a great thing about having so many talented, gifted people on the line. She just said that the chartering fee is $25 per member. Okay?
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you so much. That's great. Dell is asking, Kelly will be sending out the resources information. No, Kelly will be posting the resource information on the Zone website so that you can go there and pick it up. And I'll give you that. I'll give you that in just a minute. I'll give you the URL on that and for just a minute. Bob Taylor's asking, what are the dynamics of Cross Timber Club other than being Texan to keep their membership growing?
I think, well, one of the dynamics is they're all really happy. They're all really happy to be around each other. And part of that comes from their no drama rule. But also when they identified the type of club they wanted to be and how accessible they wanted to be, I think they meet on Friday mornings. It's around 9 a.m. Basically, they didn't want to be a 7 a.m. or 6:30 a.m. morning club. They wanted people to be able to drop their kids off at school first and then come. So it made it more accessible for perhaps parents that have a different work schedule, or perhaps stay-at-home parents too, because just because they're not employed by an outside employer doesn't mean that they can't contribute some really great leadership. So I would say they just really like to be around each other. They've created some, I think they even had a couples cruise. They continue to build on fellowship opportunities, which makes them all want to be around each other. They talked about, you know, how some people say like, oh, I have to go to Rotary. No, they wanted Rotary to be part of their everyday lives. So they've worked extremely hard to build friendships, to be inclusive. They're really open to new ideas. So they have, they've been written up in the Rotarian magazine, and if you even go to their club website, if you Google Cross Timbers Rotary Club, they can tell you all about it. But there's also on the Zone website for membership, we did a webinar with them, I think early last year, and it's a great webinar recording. So you can hear straight from their mouths how they develop this club and how they keep their membership happy.
Great. So let's go to Terry from the dairy, and I've clicked on his. Let's see if I can get him to answer. Okay. Ask your question. Can you ask your question now, Terry? If you unmute yourself. Okay, obviously he can't.
How's that? Am I there?
You're there. Ask your question.
Hi, gang. Hey, what we have, you know, Idaho is one of the fastest growing communities in the nation. And we're seeing small communities that have just exploded in growth. How do we surface individuals in that community that would find interest in a Rotary Club?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last part of that question?
Yeah, with the growth we have in new communities, we've got two areas that are fairly large, and we're trying to start new Rotary clubs in there, but how do we surface individuals? In other words, how do you go into a community that you know nothing about and find people that might be interested in being a Rotarian?
I would say first, it couldn't hurt to do some research on what companies exist in the community. You know, getting a hold of people, city council. Also, another great tool might be using LinkedIn. If you can search by the city, and then a lot of times on LinkedIn, they might list what their profession is, but also their interests. So even doing a search by service is a great service, or philanthropy is a great way to see who might be interested in joining Rotary there. And perhaps maybe the district might be interested in putting on some kind of prospective member event or joining some kind of event that's happening in the community to let people know about Rotary. And maybe that's a place where you can collect the names and contact information of prospective members who are interested in starting something new.
Cool.
I hope that answered some questions, but I love that. I love that there's so much growth happening.
Okay, now we have a question by George Small. George, ask your question. Can you ask that? I'm still, okay, it doesn't look like you can ask it. The club that reduces the dues to 1/2 for the under 40, I assume that was for club dues rather than RI dues.
That would be correct. So they paid full RI dues so that they would show up as a member in the club head count, and also be able to hold office, votes, all of that, being a part of an active member. But yeah, they slashed club dues. So basically the dues from other club members would subsidize for theirs being lessened. But the nice thing is the club came together to make this decision all together, understanding that there might be some financial restrictions for younger members.
Great. So Governor to be Jeff down in 5520, can you see this question live? Okay. He's asking, do satellite clubs show up on Rotary Locator app? I think that's a great question.
I think so too. And unfortunately at this point, they don't show up in the Rotary Locator app. I think that's part of just the functionality that exists, that we don't have the technology to update that right now. But if the sponsor club has their information up to date and their website up to date on the Rotary Locator app, they could also list, if they click on the website, they could see that there might be another opportunity for a different club meeting. But great question. I'm always happy to share feedback on how maybe we can improve the Locator app too. So thank you.
Okay, then Governor Small is asking club or district dues in the previous question. So I imagine that's for the under 40 group. What do you know what they charge their under 40 members?
I don't know what the dues total was for them. I can certainly ask my colleague and find out. But part of it is, yeah, that included half of the dues for the district as well. and either the club subsidize that or they work something out with the district specifically. And, you know, situations like that vary from district to district.
Okay, and then we have Marka Barbie is asking, how many E-clubs do you have in Texas?
That I do not know off the top of my head, but I could certainly look into it. And E-clubs, you know, obviously they don't need to go necessarily by the title E-clubs anymore. Sometimes I point it out just because they might primarily meet online, but there's always opportunity for hybrid clubs too, like in some of the examples that we gave. I will certainly look up how many E-clubs we have in Texas and follow up with you. Okay,
I think that covers our questions. I'm going to give the individuals that are on the call tonight, we've got a good turnout tonight. I'm going to give you one last opportunity to answer any of your questions. I mean, ask any questions. We'll try to answer them. You get to ask them.
Kelly, I've got one.
Yes. So wait just a minute. I see, before you ask that, Terry, I just picked up some more. Okay. Let's see. The session is being recorded. There was a question on that, and I think all the other questions we've asked. Go ahead, Governor.
On multiple memberships, like a shared membership or a corporate membership, how do you handle the paperwork? Whose name do you put down? Do you put the company's name, and do they get an ID number? How does that work?
Great question. So for, say, a corporate membership, no, it would not be the company's name. It would be the individual's name. And depending on, like, there's so many different types of corporate memberships too. So say, for example, say it's for rotating, and say you want to have one individual listed as active and maybe 3 are listed as honorary. So they're only getting charged, there's the only head count for one active member, but they're only getting charged that much from RI as well. But yeah, you would want to list the individual rather than the corporation, simply because RI policy states that only a person can be a member, not a company. And so that's how you would list it for corporate. As far as like a partner or family membership, it would be up to the club and the members to determine who might be listed as the primary member, and then they're welcome to add their partner or their family members as the honorary members. I hope that answered your question.
After coming back from Atlanta last year, they talked about all these different memberships, and I was under the impression that, you know, a business like my company could be, you know, Rimfire Ranch could be the member, and all these are the designees. It was somewhat confusing when we tried to do the paperwork because we had to come up with a name. And
okay.
This is a big help. I think, you know, it would be easy if, you know, Rimfire Ranch became the member. And then when, like a bank, you get a bank that wants to belong, and when they lose the member, the bank is gone. But if the bank's the member, all they got to do is fill that slot. So I'm thinking there should be a way to identify the membership as a bank, you know, and then always have that kind of fill in instead of us trying to beat the bush and try to come up with a member from that entity.
No, I can understand how logistically that would be much easier. I think the point of it, though, is to somehow, yeah, policy-wise, I think it's just more of identifying an individual being more important, even though it would be helpful. I mean, on an unofficial, like, or internal club roster, you're welcome to have that. But I think as far as when it comes to the club invoice and having the official club roster for RI and the RI database, that's when they really need the individuals, even if the person rotates out. But I understand totally that it can be kind of a logistical nightmare as far as that is concerned. But one thing to keep in mind too, I mean, corporate membership didn't even used to be allowed. So you can always bring this up at the council legislation, or try and put forward some movement to make those changes too, seeing as those are changes made by Rotarians.
Okay, and then we're going to take this one final question from Bob Taylor, and Bob's asking, we have a shared presidency next year. How do we handle the pets expense? And the answer to that question is, Bob, contact your district governor or your AG, your assistant governor, and ask that question, because that's specific to your district. RI doesn't control that. Your district controls how they handle those expenses. So if you'll reach out to your either your incoming governor, your district governor elect, or your AG, they should be able to answer that question for you. Julie, I want to thank you so much for taking time. You know, this is in addition to everything that Julie does. So we just are so appreciative, and you can see what a great resource she is and how valuable she is in the contributions she makes to our paired zone. So thank you so much, Julie.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Now I'm going to, all the AGs that are on the line, I'd like you to take just a minute and introduce yourself. Make sure that you, and tell the districts that you're assigned to. Make sure you unmute yourself. And then after that, we're going to have an open mic for you to, that's on the line, to share anything that you might want to share that's on your mind. So let's start out with Bob. Bob?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Hear you loud and clear.
All right. Well, I'm Bob Dill. My districts are 5750, 5770, and 5810.
Great. Then we have Bob Delavan.
There we go. I got myself unmuted. I'm Bob Delavan. I'm with District 5470, but the districts of my responsibility are districts 5450, 5440, 5520, and 5630.
Great. Diane?
Yes, I am I on mute?
Nope.
No, I'm not.
You're
Okay,
live.
good. Very good. My districts are 5610 South Dakota, and the three Kansas districts, 5670, 5690, and 5710. And I am from 5630 in Nebraska. And I don't really have anything to share this evening, except to say that we're really looking forward to pushing out the club membership guide, and hopefully we'll have a good response from our clubs as we move ahead through our PETS process.
Great. Dick? Let me, there. We're not here.
Hi, I'm Dick Jones, District 5520, New Mexico, and the southern southwest corner of Texas. And I am responsible for 5390, 5400, 5420, and 5470.
Great. George?
Yes, can you hear me, Kelly?
Loud and clear.
I'm from District 5810, which is the North Texas Dallas district. I'm supporting 5730, which is West Texas, 5790, which is the Fort Worth district, and 5890, the Houston district.
Great. And last but not least on our call tonight is Lisa Faith. Lisa.
Good evening. I'm from District 5890, Greater Houston area. This year I have districts 5930, 5910. Well, 5930 is the Corpus area, Gulf Coast region. 5910, which is Galveston and surrounding Houston area, and 5870, which is the Greater Austin area.
Great. These assistant coordinators put in a lot of time and effort in your behalf, and we just encourage you, if you're in their area, we just encourage you to utilize their skills and their abilities and their resources. They're very talented individuals and are just waiting for their phone to ring to kind of reach out and assist you, or to pull up an email in their hopper to respond to it. So please don't hesitate to use them. With that, Bob, I'm going to turn the time over to you, and you're going to let people express what's on their mind. And if you'll raise your hand during this segment, then I can elevate you to a panelist, and we'll be able to hear you audio. So other than that, you're going to have to type your questions, but if you'll raise your hands, I'll make sure that I click you on. And then Bob, take it away.
Well, thank you, Kelly. This is kind of a new segment for all of us, and we're trying out some new ways of doing business from Zoom here tonight. So it should be kind of an exciting challenge to see if we can make this work between typing questions and raising hands, but we'll give it a try. This 10 minutes is really an opportunity for everybody on the call, and I think at this point we still have something in the neighborhood of 29 people still here with us. It's a chance to get on the phone here, to get on the microphone, or to type in, or to otherwise get Kelly's attention so that he can allow you to speak. And we can talk about successes. You can share your successes. You can ask questions. We still have 9 panelists here who can try to answer those. And we can talk about challenges that you're facing in your districts and your clubs. And so if you have something you want to share at this time, if you have a success or some information that you'd like to share with everybody else, either type your information in and we'll try to get you recognized that way, or give Kelly a wave and he'll allow you to speak up. Same if you have questions, same as if you have some challenges that you'd like to discuss. Anybody have something that they want to get started with? And Kelly, I'm not at all certain how I'm going to see this. I see a couple of chats coming up here.
Okay, so I'll if questions pop up, I'll let you know if the questions pop up, but I don't see any hands at this point.
Okay. Well, I've been looking down the list of participants in the call, and I see Dave Hertz on the call. Dave almost always has something that he'd like to share. Perhaps he can come in and communicate a little bit. Dave, are you out there?
Okay, we've got 2 participants raising their hands. That's a good thing. Okay, I'm happy to see that. Okay, hang on just a minute and I'll get you. Okay, Dave is raising his hand, and so I'm going to promote. Okay, Dave, you ought to be able to ask your question. Hang on just a minute. Yeah. Okay, go ahead and ask your question, Dave, or make your comment. Let me see.
Is Dave muted?
I'm going to unmute him right now. Okay, Dave, ask your question.
Can you hear me now, Kelly?
We can.
We've got you, Dave.
Well, Bob had just asked for me to say a few comments, and he knows I'm never lacking for words since there were no questions at the time. I would just like to say, as having been the past district membership chair for District 5790, we initiated a lot of good things, and many of them came from Bob Dill. And we are in our 5th year now of positive growth, using suggestions that came from these webinars, and now the Rotary International is doing such a much better job in providing tools to work with that we provided pretty much. I think I gave you one of the manuals we had, Kelly, at one time.
You did.
A lot of how-to stuff. And all of these suggestions are extremely well. I can only endorse what you're doing. 4 years ago, we had 67 clubs in our District 5790. This year we have 71. So it certainly supports the idea of developing new clubs for membership growth.
Super. And then Marka Barbie, you ought to be able to, hang on just a minute. You ought to be able to answer your question. I mean, ask your question, excuse me. You might be able to answer it too. You there, Marka? I can see you. I'm going to unmute you. Okay, go ahead.
I went to the training in Denver and I thought it was excellent training. And I was very fortunate that I was able to go. So I think it's going to really help us in our district with the membership.
Thank you. That's great.
So do we have, Kelly, can you see if we have anybody else there that's raising their hand at this point?
I don't see anyone else raising their hand, but Robert Greenstreet has said this. My district has lost several clubs from the community which have fallen on hard times and lost population as well as businesses. How can we help Rotary thrive in needy rural communities?
So this is a question that Bob's asking to the group. If anybody in the group wants to come in and talk, if any panelist has a comment that they would like to make on Bob's question, now would be a fine time to do that. Do we have any panelists that would like to comment on Bob's question?
Kelly?
Go ahead.
We can hear you, Terry.
Okay. I've got a club that fits that scenario, and I've tried this. So far has not succeeded. But we got a few clubs that are coming up on their 100-year anniversary, and I look back into history, and the way they got started is other clubs came into the community and helped them get off the ground. I'm suggesting that maybe the more successful clubs in your community should embrace those clubs, even if they're 50 miles away. Come in and maybe put some life and some blood in those clubs. And they just, this particular club they're just wore out. Most of the members are over 70 years old, and they're just, you know, they haven't got any energy left. And maybe we can borrow energy from a sister club, something like that.
I think Diane has a comment she wants to make on that, Bob.
Well,
Good.
it's another question I have to ask. I don't want to take away from further suggestions in response to Robert's question.
So let me just respond a little bit to Robert this way. I think sometimes what we miss in Rotary is not going to communities, especially in these needed rural communities, gathering together the people that are potential Rotarians and asking them how they feel, what they feel that a Rotary Club, what needs the Rotary Club could meet in the community, and get their feedback and not try to structure our club with preconceived notions of what the needs are in the community, but listen to the community leaders and the people that are potential Rotarians and say, if you had a community club, what would you want that community club to do for this community? And then structure your club around the feedback that you receive from those individuals. I think that's your best chance for having growth. Not coming in and saying, look, we're a Rotary Club and this is what we do, but listening to what they want done and then trying to build a club around their needs.
Thank you, Kelly. That was certainly, I think, some good words in answer to Bob's question. Bob happens to be from my district, and so I have some familiarity with the issues that he's raising here. And in large measure, I think the concern that Bob has is that some of these communities are really economically challenged, and how can a club continue to operate and exist in these communities that get really severely economically challenged. And I think it does take a new view on how perhaps Rotary can operate to meet the needs of those little communities that are having those economic challenges. For what it's worth right now, Kelly, my countdown timer tells me that we're past our 10 minutes here if you want to.
So let's just answer these final two questions. Diane has a question, and Sharon Miles has a question. So Dan, or a comment.
Okay.
Diane?
Just quickly, I wanted to ask Julie Aubrey, returning to her presentation concerning the chartering of a new club, what is a realistic timeline where we might be able to make this happen before the end of the Rotary year in terms of boosting our membership? Is it a 6-week scenario for us when all the documentation is at club and district support? Is that a realistic timeline?
Hi, great question. Very thoughtful question too. So that's exactly what happens is a lot of people scramble towards the end of the year and then everyone submits it at once. So I would recommend the earlier the better. Usually it's not 6 weeks long, although I definitely in the past did have that happen when information was incomplete or the member forms were illegible. So if you follow the checklist that they give you, if you have all the information provided, things should move very swiftly. But just know that if you do wait until June, so many other people are submitting theirs at the same time. So I would actually recommend if it's nowhere near charter ready at this point, really aim for May. That's what I would. You can always still submit it in June, and they do have a cutoff date. They'll do their best to get everything done in time. But if you're really trying to get everything wrapped up in a nice, neat bow, aim for May is what I would say.
Thank you.
Okay, and our final question for tonight, Bob, is going to have to be Sharon. As you pointed out, we've expended our time for this period of time. So, Sharon, I'm going to unmute you, and you can ask your question or make your comment.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I don't really have a question. It's been a great meeting, and thank you for doing this for us. I did want to say that we are doing at our pets training in Lone Star Pets this year, we do have sessions on satellite clubs specifically on Thursday. We have 2-hour sessions on Thursday for that. And then George is doing his Rotary 101, and then Sherry is also doing a membership training on Thursday evening. And then our new curriculum has been revised, and it's pretty heavy in membership development, retention, growth, and all the flexibility. We're really stressing flexibility of clubs this year in our manual. So just want to encourage those of you in Oklahoma and Texas to get your people there, and especially the satellite and e-clubs, because we're really trying to get them information, help bolster them and support them.
Great, Sharon. So let me thank you for joining the call tonight. And I just want to tell you, in behalf of Sherry and I, we really appreciate your willingness to take an hour out of your time. I will tell you that on the website, the material that you've seen tonight will be presented, including the PowerPoint. So let me put that. If you go to this address, okay, www.rizone21-27.org, you'll be able to again see the video presentation tonight of tonight's call, and also draw down the material that Julie's talking about. I want to thank Bob for his assistance tonight. I want to thank the RCs for joining us tonight. And most of all, we want to thank you for participating tonight and being so involved in the meeting. Thank you, and have a rest of a pleasant evening.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yep.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yep.
Good job,
Thanks,
Julie.
Kelly.
Great job, everybody.
Ooh.
That's the Terry Meister leaving. So.